Good morning, I'm Jerron Reeves and welcome to Geeky News on channel 2209. Today we will take a look back at the top 8 events of the decade. Number 8, 80s fashion. The 80s included everything from shoulder pads to leg warmers, while wearing unmatching neon colors. The typical fashion made it hard not to stare. While girls would wear oversized tops and huge earrings, guys didn't look much better with the MC Hammer pants and members-only jackets. Overall, the 80s fashion was absurd. But of course, we didn't know that when we were putting on our fingerless gloves. And what were we thinking with the poofy hair and long mullets? Someone should have stopped us, but we carried through anyways. We might not have liked putting on mini skirts or stretched stirrup pants, but we wanted to fit in, not only with our friends, but our celebrity influences, such as Madonna or Jodie Foster. Guys were influenced too with the wardrobes of MC Hammer and the Beastie Boys. Fashion in the 80s was something else, and it will be remembered. Now to our news specialist Hayden Evans with the Just Say No campaign.
Hello, once again, I have a good story to tell you. Alright, I'm here with Magic Johnson. Hayden Evans, nice to meet you. The first case of AIDS was a group of gays in Los Angeles that were drug users. Everybody in the United States were very on edge due to the 7,966 deaths in 1984. Ryan White was one of the poster children when he got AIDS because of blood transplant in December 1984. He was expelled from school. Ryan White stopped the thoughts that only gays and drug users could get AIDS. On October 2nd, 1985, Rock Hudson was the first high-profile person to die from AIDS. In February 1987, the FDA approved the first treatment for the Ryan White Care Act helped treatment to get approved by the FDA. Sports star Magic Johnson here will go on to contract AIDS in 1991. He retired immediately and dedicated his life to the battle the deadly disease. This has been a very crazy decade, but things got better every day. Thank you. From Hayden Evans, Magic Johnson.
Now I'm going to recap on the music from this radical decade. The 1980s was a decade of revolutionary changes to the music scene. Music became more diverse with music genres like new wave, heavy metal, techno pop, rock and roll, and new country. Music became a huge marketing tool as filmmakers, TV producers, artists, and manufacturers of anything from Pepsi products to electronics would use hit 80s songs and popular artists in their commercials to help sell their products. When it came to music during this decade, nothing was underrated, not the sound nor the fashion. In 1981, music television, also known as MTV, was created. MTV was the first network to show music videos. The first music video played on MTV was Video Killed the Radio Star by the Bugles. This would forever change the music industry, and the focus would shift from music and lyrics to fashion and acting. Now here are some popular artists from this decade. Madonna, Prince, Journey, Michael Jackson, Cher, Whitney Houston, Don Healy, and Bruce Springsteen. Hello and good morning, Hickey News listeners. Today I'm going to talk about the great President Ronald Reagan and the economy. Before Reagan came into office, the economy was experiencing stagflation, which is high unemployment and high inflation. Once he came into office, he made up the economic policy called Reaganomics. The 4 pillars of Reaganomics were growth of government spending, which Reagan did by increasing the spending by 2.5% a year. The second pillar was to reduce federal income tax. Taxes were cut significantly, increasing consumer demand. By Reagan's last year in office, tax rate was down to 28%, although the federal deficit did increase. The third pillar was to reduce government regulations. Reagan constrained the free market equilibrium that would have prevented inflation. Reagan also removed control over oil and gas, cable TV, long-distance telephone services, interstate bus services, ocean shipping, and more. Bank regulations were also reduced. The last pillar was to reduce inflation. Reagan wanted to tighten the money supply. He did so by using contractionary monetary policy. Reagan's Federal Reserve Chairman, Paul Volcker, was able to control inflation, but this then triggered the recession of 1981 to 1982. Unemployment rose to 10.8%. Although Reaganomics had its bad outcomes, It helped the U.S. economy overall. Now back to Jeremy.
Okay. The first woman appointed to the Supreme Court was Sandra Day O'Connor, born on March 26, 1930, who was a retired Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, serving from her appointment in 1981 by Ronald Reagan until her retirement in 2006. She received unanimous Senate approval and was a key swing vote in many important cases, including the upholding of Roe v. Wade. Secondly, born in Wisconsin in 1924, William H. Rehnquist became Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, 1986. After 1989, when a new right majority had been established by President Reagan, Rehnquist framed a series of conservative rulings on abortion, affirmative action, and capital punishment during his tenure as Chief Justice. Rehnquist also presided over the impeachment trial of Bill Clinton in the Bush v. Gore election decision. He died in 2005 in Virginia, closing Antonin Scalia, born on March 11, 1936, in Trenton, New Jersey, was a United States Supreme Court Justice member as well. In 1986, President Reagan nominated him as Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court, serving in that capacity until his death on February 13, 2016. The Berlin Wall was a barrier that divided Berlin from 1961 to 1989, constructed by the German Democratic Republic. Starting on August 13th of 1961, the wall completely cut off West Berlin from East Germany and East Berlin, until government officials officially opened it in November 1989. Its demolition officially began on June 13th of 1990 and completed in 1992. The barrier included guard towers and placed along the large concrete walls, which spanned across a large area. It contained anti-vehicle trenches and other defenses. In practice, the wall served to prevent the massive immigration and defection that had marked East Germany and the Communist Eastern Bloc during post-World War II period. This prompt teardown sparked about due to a series of radical political changes which occurred in the Eastern Bloc in 1989. This was associated with the liberalization of the Eastern Bloc's authoritarian systems and the erosion of political power in the pro-Soviet governments in nearby Poland and Hungary. After several weeks of civil unrest, the East German government announced on November 9, 1989 that all GDR citizens could visit West Germany and West Berlin.
Thanks, Jeremy. That was pretty interesting. But let's talk about something more important. On January 28, 1986, the beloved Challenger space shuttle exploded down at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida. The launch time was delayed many hours due to weather concerns. The Challenger was originally supposed to take off around 9 to 10, but took off at 11:38 a.m., and 73 seconds later, a mechanical malfunction caused the explosion. There were 7 total deaths, and although they are all important, the name we remember is Krista McAuliffe. Krista was a teacher at an elementary school and was to be the first teacher in space for NASA's Teacher in Space program. She had a bright future ahead of her, and she will be missed. Although the other 6 people were also very important. It was one thing to be remembered in the 80s, and we will not forget it.